The first commandment, Thou shalt have no other gods before me. That is, thou shalt have and worship me alone as thy God. What is the force of this, and how is it to be understood? What does it mean to have a God, or what is God? Answer: a God means that from which we are to expect all good, and to which we are to take refuge in all distress. So that to have a God is nothing else than to trust and believe him from the whole heart. As I have often said, that the confidence and faith of the heart alone makes both God and an idol. If your faith and trust be right, then is your God also true? And on the other hand, if your trust be false and wrong, then you have not the true God, for these two belong together, faith and God. That now, I say, upon which you set your heart and put your trust is properly your God. Therefore, it is the intent of this commandment to acquire true faith and trust of the heart, which settles upon the only true God and clings to him alone. That is as much as to say, see to it that you let me alone be your God, and never seek another, i.e., whatever you lack of good things, expect it of me, and look to me for it, and whenever you suffer misfortune and distress, creep and cling to me. Yes, I will give you enough, and help you out of every need. Only let not your heart cleave to or rest in any other. This I must unfold somewhat more plainly, that it may be understood and perceived by ordinary examples of the contrary. Many a one thinks that he has God and everything in abundance when he has money and possessions. He trusts in them and boasts of them with such firmness and assurance as to care for no one. Lo, such a man also has a God, Mammon by name, i.e., money and possessions, on which he sets all his heart, and which is also the most common idol on earth. He who has money and possessions feels secure and is joyful and undismayed, as though he were sitting in the midst of paradise. On the other hand, he who has none doubts and is despondent, although he knew of no God. For very few are to be bound who are of good cheer, and who neither mourn nor complain if they have not mammon. This care for desire for money sticks and clings to our nature, even to the grave. So too, whoever trusts and boasts that he has possessions, great skill, prudence, favor, friendship, and honor, has also a God, but not this true and only God. This appears again when you notice how presumptuous, secure, and proud people are because of such possessions, and how despondent when they no longer exist or are withdrawn. Therefore, I repeat that the chief explanation of this point is that they have a God is to have something in which the heart entirely trusts. Besides, consider what, in our blindness, we have hitherto been practicing and doing under the papacy. If anyone had toothache, he fasted and honored Saint Apollina, emaciated by his flesh in voluntary fasting in the honor of Saint Apollonia. If he was afraid of fire, he chose Saint Lawrence as his helper in need. If he dreaded pestilence, he made a vow to Saint Sebastian or Rocchio, and a countless number of such abominations. When everyone selected his own saint, worshipped him, and called for him in his distress. Here belong those also, as, e.g., sorcerers and magicians, whose idolatry is most gross, whom make a covenant with the devil, in order that he may give them plenty of money, or help them in love affairs, preserve their cattle, restore them to lost possessions, etc. For all those place their heart and trust elsewhere than in the true God, and look for nothing good to him, nor seek it from him. Thus you can easily understand what and how this commandment requires, namely that man's entire heart and all his confidence be placed in God alone, and in no one else. For to have God, you can easily perceive it is not to lay hold of him with our hands, or to put him in a bag as money, or lock him up in a chest as silver vessels. But to apprehend him means when the heart lays hold of him and clings to him. But to cling to him with the heart is nothing else than to trust him entirely. For this reason he wishes to turn us away from everything else that exists outside of him, and to draw us to himself, namely because he is the only eternal good, as though he would say, whatever you have heretofore sought of the saints, or for whatever things you have trusted in mammon or anything else, expect it all of me, and regard me as the one who will help you and pour out upon you richly and all good things. Lo, here you have the meaning of the true honor and worship of God, which pleases God, and which he commands under penalty and of eternal wrath, namely that the heart know no other comfort or confidence than in him, and do not suffer itself to be torn from him, but for him risk and disregard everything upon earth. On the other hand, you can easily see and judge how the world practices only false worship and idolatry. For no people has ever been so reprobate as to not institute and observe some divine worship. Everyone has set up as his special God whatever he looked to for blessings, help, and comfort. Thus, for example, the heathen who puts their trust in power and dominion elevated Jupiter as the supreme God, and others who bent upon riches, happiness, and pleasure, and a life of ease, Hercules, Mercury, Venus, or others, women with child, Diana or Lucina, and so on. Thus everyone made that his God to which his heart was inclined, so that even the midst mind of the heathen, to have a God means to trust and believe. But the error is this, that their trust is false and wrong, for it is not placed in the only God, besides whom there is truly no God in heaven or upon earth. Therefore the heathen really make their self-invented notions and dreams of God an idol, and put their trust in which is altogether nothing. Thus it is with all idolatry, for it consists not merely in erecting an image and worshipping it, but rather in the heart, which stands gaping at something else, and seeks help and consolation from creatures, saints, or devils, and neither cares for God, nor looks to him for so much good as to believe that he is willing to help, neither believes that whatever good it experiences comes from God. Beside, there is also a false worship and extreme idolatry, which we have hitherto practiced, and is still prevalent in the world, upon which also all ecclesiastical orders are founded, and which concerns the conscience alone, that seeks in its own works help, consolation, and salvation, presumes to wrest heaven from God, and reckons how many bequests it has made, and how often it has fasted, celebrated Mass, etc. Upon such things it depends, and of them boasts, as though unwilling to receive anything from God as a gift, but desires itself to earn or merit it superabundantly, just as though he must serve us and were our debtor, and we his liege lords. What is this but reducing God to an idol, yea, a fig image or an apple god, and elevating and regarding ourselves as God? But this is slightly too subtle, and not for young pupils. But let this be said to the simple, that they may well note and remember the meaning of this commandment, namely, that we are to trust in God alone, and to look at him, and to expect from him naught but good, as from one who gives us body, life, food, drink, nourishment, health, protection, peace, and all necessaries of both temporal and eternal things. He also preserves us from misfortune, and if any befalls us, delivers and rescues us, so that it is God alone, as has been sufficiently said, from whom we receive all good, and by whom we are delivered from all evil. Hence also, I think, we Germans from ancient times, call God, more elegantly and appropriately than any other language, by the name from the word good, as being an eternal fountain which gushes forth abundantly nothing but what is good, and from which flows forth all that is and is called good. For even though otherwise we experience much good from man, still whatever we receive by his command or arrangement is all received from God. For our parents and all rulers and everyone beside, with respect to his neighbor, have received from God the command that they shall do us all manner of good, so that we receive these blessings not from them, but through them from God. For creatures are only the hands, channels, and means whereby God gives all things. And he gives us the mother breasts and milk to offer to her child, and corn and all manner of produce from the earth for nourishment, none of which blessings could be produced by any creature itself. Therefore no man should presume to take or give anything except as God has commanded, in order that it may be acknowledged as God's gift, and thanks may be rendered him for it, as this command requires. On this account also, these means of receiving good gifts through creatures are not to be rejected. Neither should we in presumption seek other ways and means that God has commanded, for that would not be receiving from God, but seeking of ourselves. Let everyone then see to it that he esteem this commandment and great and high above all things, and do not regard it as a joke. Ask and examine your heart diligently, and you will find whether it cleaves to God alone or not. If you have a heart that can expect of him nothing from what is good, especially in want and distress, that moreover renounces and forsakes everything that is not good, then you have the only true God. If, on the contrary, it cleaves to anything else, of which it expects more good and help than of God, and does not take refuge in him, but adversity flees from him, then you have an idol, another God. In order that it may be seen that God will not have this commandment thrown to the winds, but will most strictly enforce it, he has attached it first to a terrible threat, and then a beautiful, comforting promise, which is also to be urged and impressed upon young people, that they may take heart and retain it. For I am the Lord your God, strong and jealous, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Although these words relate to all the commandments, as we shall hereafter learn, yet they are joined to this chief commandment because of its first importance, that men have a right head. For where the head is right, the whole life must be right, and vice versa. Learn thereafter from these words how angry God is with those who trust in anything but him, and again how good and gracious he is to those who trust and believe in him alone with the whole heart, so that his anger does not cease until the fourth generation, while on the other hand his blessing and goodness extends to many thousands, lest you live in such security, and commit yourself to chance as men of brutal heart, who think that it makes no great difference how they live. He is a God who will not leave it unavenged if men turn from him, and he will not cease to be angry until the fourth generation, even as they are utterly exterminated. Therefore he is to be feared and not to be despised. He has also demonstrated in all history, as the Scriptures abundantly show and daily experience still teaches. For the beginning, he has utterly extirpated all idolatry, and on account of it both heathen and Jew, even as at the present time he overthrows all false worship, so that all who remain therein may finally perish. Therefore all proud, powerful, and rich worldlings, Sardanapalises and Philaridites, who surpass even the Persians in wealth, are now to be found, who boast definitely of their mammon, with utter disregard whether God is angry at or smiles on them, and dare to withstand his wrath. Yet they shall not succeed, but before they are aware, they shall be wrecked, with all in which they trusted, as all others have perished, who have thought themselves more secure or powerful. And just because of such hardened hearts, who imagine that because God connives and allows them to rest in security, that he is either entirely ignorant or cares nothing about such matters, he must deal a smashing blow and punish them, so that he cannot forget it unto the children's children, so that everyone may take note and see that this is not a joke to him. For they are those whom he means when he says, who hate me, i.e., those who persist in their defiance and pride, whatever is preached or said to them, they will not listen. When they are reproved, in order that they may learn to know themselves, and armed before the punishment begins, they become mad and foolish, so as to fairly merit wrath. And now we see daily in bishops and princes. But terrible are these threatenings, so much so the more powerful is the consolation in the promise that those who cling to God alone should be sure that he will show them mercy, that is, show them pure goodness and blessing, not only for themselves, but also to their children and their children's children, even to the 1,000th generation and beyond that. This ought certainly to move and impel us to risk our hearts in all confidence, if we wish all temporal and eternal good, since the Supreme Majesty makes us such sublime offers and presents such cordial inducements and such rich promises. Therefore, let everyone seriously take this to heart, lest it be regarded as though a man had spoken it. For to you it is a question either of eternal blessing, happiness, and salvation, or of eternal wrath, misery, and woe. What more would you have desired than that he so kindly promises to be yours with every blessing, and to protect and help you in all need? But alas, here is the failure, that the world believes nothing of this, nor regards it as God's word, because it sees that those who trust in God and not in mammon suffer care and want, and the devil opposes and resists them, that they have neither money, favor, nor honor, and besides can scarcely support life. While, on the other hand, those who support and serve mammon have power, favor, honor, possessions, and every comfort in the eyes of the world. For this reason, these words must be grasped at being directed against such appearances, and we must consider that they do not lie or deceive, but must come true. Reflect for yourself, or make inquiry, and tell me, those who have employed all their care and diligence to accumulate great possessions and wealth, what have they finally attained? You will find that they have wasted their toil and labor, or even though they have amassed great treasures, they have been disparaged and scattered, so that they themselves have never found happiness in their wealth, and afterward it never reached the 3rd generation. Instances of this you will find plenty in all histories, also in the memory of the aged and experienced people. Only observe and ponder them. Saul was a great king, chosen of God, and a godly man, but when he established on his throne and let his heart decline from God, and put his trust in his own crown and power, he had to perish with all that he had, so that none even of his children remained. David, on the other hand, was a poor and despised man, hunted down and chastised, so that he nowhere felt secure of his life. Yet he had to remain in spite of Saul, and become king. For these words had to abide and come true, since God cannot lie and deceive. Only let not the devil and all the world deceive you with their show, which indeed remains for a time, but finally is nothing. Let us then lean well on the first commandment, that we may see how God will tolerate no presumption, nor any trust in any other object, and how he requires nothing higher of us than confidence from the heart for everything good, that we may proceed right and straightforward and use all the blessings which God gives no farther than as a shoemaker uses his needle, awl, and thread for work, and then lays them aside, or as a traveler uses an inn and food and his bed only for temporal necessity, each one in his station, according to God's order, and without allowing any of these things to be our Lord and idol. Let this suffice with respect to the first commandment, which we have had to explain at length, since it is of chief importance, because, as we before said, where the heart is rightly disposed towards God, and this commandment is observed, all others follow.